Lonesome Report. Coming to you from the headwaters of Bitter Creek, Archer County, North Texas, right here in the bunkhouse with no other than Jim Mundorf from Lonesome Lands.
On location.
On location.
Finally made it down here.
Together.
And if the audio sucks, sorry. So we have to record it a little different way, and I'm not exactly sure. It's been a long time since I've done a remote location, so.
It's Jim's fault.
All right, let's get into it. So if you like what we're doing, want to support what we're doing, go to lonesomelands.com, click subscribe, buy a ball cap, however you want to do it. Corruption in agriculture. That's what I kind of wanted to talk about. So it's been a big week as far as so this is Tuesday. We usually record on Wednesday. Probably won't be out till Wednesday, so if something big happens tonight, that's why we didn't talk about it. But it seems like the whole week, kind of since we started doing stuff last week, everything has been about the DOGE team and all the BS they're finding in all these different accounts. And they've put this website together where you can type in any name, and it'll tell you how much federal taxpayer money went to those organizations. And what I've talked about for the last year, over a year ago, I gave a speech in Black Hill at the Black Hill Stock Show talking about climate smart commodities, the biggest issue, kind of the giant fraud in agriculture, which is $2 or $3 billion. Who knows how much? $2.5 billion. Yeah. Who knows how much in being, but all for these climate smart deals. And now that people are typing in these different companies into the climate smart commodity or into this website which is datarepublican.com. Mm-hmm. But then somebody sent me, what was that other one that you got sent today? There was another one called U.S. Spending or something. There was another one that I wasn't familiar with. So if any of our numbers are wrong.
DataRepublican.com and U.S. Spending.
USspending.com. And so these, I think, are put together by Elon Musk's team. Big Balls. Mm-hmm. Big Balls has been in the news, too.
To say the least.
If you don't know Big Balls, the Big Balls story, one of the guys who's a young guy who they hate that they're young and they're working for this. They're trying to find all this corruption, and one of them named himself Big Balls at some point in his life. And so I don't know what's going on with that. But I think it was I like that nickname.
Yeah, I think it was his social media name.
But anyway, so you're going through this, and the most so the one I've talked about all this stuff before with the climate smart commodities. ADM got $90 million. Farm Journal, which I've screamed from the mountaintops ever since I saw it, $40 million they've got to promote this climate agenda, really, to promote EID tags, to promote allowing farmers and ranchers they're figuring out a system of collecting data, and then go back to the measure, monitor, report, verify. That's been the goal of the USDA for the last 4 years. And so this whole $3 billion was created to get farmers and ranchers to be able to report their data and measure, monitor, and report all their greenhouse gas emissions. And then eventually they would, the federal government would be able to control those greenhouse gas emissions or what you do on your farm and ranch, which is, everything is kind of involved with. So, Farm Journal got the $40 million, and now you can type in Farm Journal. If you type in Farm Journal, 54 million came up. Yeah. Which I should say, one of the weird things, they'll underneath that it'll say recipient. Yeah. I think under Farm Journals it said like West Virginia University, but then the other ones were Farm Journal. So I'm not exactly sure.
The way I understand it is they can disperse some of that themselves too.
Who can?
Like Farm Journal got their 40 million, but it says 54 million. They can disperse some.
Well, it definitely said
subsidiaries.
It definitely said 40 million to Farm Journal.
Yeah.
And so, but then if you look under, it had that separated, the 40 million Farm Journal, but then I think it was like 9 million that went to West Virginia University, but why was that under the Farm Journal? I don't know. But if you look on the one I've talked about for years, because I didn't know, as I look through all of these climate smart commodity programs, one of the name that is involved in almost every one you look at is Ducks Unlimited, which is a duck hunting wildlife I mean, it's kind of goes along the Pheasants Forever, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, all those kind of wildlife conservation programs. Ducks Unlimited. If you type in their name, it'll say the total federal tax money, $373,704,166.18 for Ducks Unlimited. Which I've always, I thought if I knew how to do a, what do they call it? FOIA? What is that? Freedom of Information Act? Mm-hmm. If I knew how to do that, I would have sent, like, I've thought, man, if I figure out how to do a FOIA, then I'll just do it for all this climate smart commodity. But now it's all coming out.
Yeah.
But what was weird, like Farm Journal, under their Trust in Beef program, National Cattlemen's Beef Association is on there. ABS, which is, what is that? American Breeders Services, mm-hmm. which is like a semen company, cattle genetics. I think Ducks Unlimited is under the Farm Journal one. So who knows exactly how. And I typed in Tyson Foods and nothing came up. And then I typed in National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and it gave their totals. It gave the one I've talked about a lot, which is $445,000 to promote electronic ID tags, which they just call traceability program. But what if you read through it, it's like promoting EID tags. And getting their members to like if you read through it all, it's like getting your members to understand the importance of traceability and all this stuff. Well, it's pretty much how to indoctrinate your members and get them to go along with the ID tags.
It's how to get them to buy into the lie.
Right? Yeah.
As Jim Mundorf
would say. To agree to the lie. Yeah. So, but then if I went this morning to look for National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and no results found. So that one has been, I don't know, something's different. But the one thing I also have talked about over the year is why is U.S. Fish and Wildlife a main sponsor of National Cattlemen's Beef Association Environmental Stewardship Award? And I've talked about how, one of the ways these organizations get people to go along and be all in is they invite their ranch to the show or to the convention, and fly them down there and get them up on stage, and everybody claps for them, and they give them an award, and then they have a lifetime member and their buddies forever. And sometimes that don't work, right? I'm sitting here with an Environmental Stewardship Award winner.
Not me.
What year was that?
Well, we didn't ever win that.
I thought you did.
No, we won the Stalker of the Year award in 2008.
Oh.
Yeah.
But Andrea Hutchinson won.
Chain Ranch won the Leopold Award.
So you have the two biggest critics, because that just shows how indoctrination doesn't always work when you deal with honest people. What was your award called? You won the NCBA Stalker of the Year.
Stalker of the Year award, yeah.
What year was that?
2008. It was a long time ago.
So what year did RCAF start?
RCAF was started in the 90s.
Yeah. So when were you?
Split in the early 2000s.
Were you RCAF members when you won?
My dad was. No, well, we were. My dad was. But we were also NCBA members.
Oh, so you were both.
But we were not active NCBA members. We weren't active.
Yeah.
And my dad was always an NCBA or a RCAFer. I was kind of the other way because I was fresh out of college.
So you were an NCBA?
I was a member, but I wasn't really active like I am now. And then, of course, we were hot off the heels of our little problem with the Nature Conservancy and the Colorado State Land Board when we lost that land. And then somewhere around 2010 when I really woke up because of the GRSB, Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. And I'm like, this doesn't sound right. This doesn't sound good. And, of course, anything with global in it makes me a little bit weary. And that's when I came over to RCAF.
And really started getting active.
And I started getting active later on, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, to go back to what I was getting at, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, USFWS, is that right? Which is another conservation group, but this was a federal government. They gave National Cattlemen's Beef Association $40,000 to sponsor this Environmental Stewardship Award. So there you have taxpayer dollars going directly to NCBA to, and then so why is the federal government want to give NCBA $40,000? Well, it's because same reason they wanted to give them $445,000. That came from the USDA. It's because they can then tell them what to do and what they want to promote and all this kind of stuff, which is all this. And so, so why do you want to give them? And then a little bit later, you have a couple guys on the NCBA podcast who are down at their convention last year who are promoting conservation easements, which is what the federal government wants. They want everybody signed up into this easement in perpetuity that goes on for a lifetime, and so that they can kind of control the land, that what goes on that land and wildlife habitat and all that kind of stuff, because they think they can run your outfit better than you.
It's all about the future.
Some other notables. If you looked under JBS, the total came up as $82,293,337.49. To be fair, Trump gave JBS, or Trump's USDA, which was Sonny Perdue back then, gave JBS a bunch of money.
I think we should scrub that.
Scrub what?
Even talking about that. I don't think Trump. I think Trump's a different man.
Well, yeah, but you can't just say scrub history.
No, but I don't think that will happen again.
Right, and if we talk about it, that's how we keep it from happening again, right?
Nature Conservancy, $567 million.
Which to be honest, they did have a number of the universities come up under Nature Conservancy, right? Theirs came up as 500, so they $500 million. If that's true,
$500 million is what come up.
But what was crazy, I think they had like 100 entries. It was like 2 million, 6 million, 9 million. It was all over the place. The one that was weird with JBS's, a lot of theirs was opioid, substance abuse, stuff like that. So that made me wonder. I don't know what that was.
In Brazil.
Some of it didn't say Brazil. One of them said like American. I don't know.
There was one that had $20 million for transgender studies in another country.
But that wasn't through JBS.
No, that wasn't JBS.
That was USDA, though.
Yeah.
USDA was given. That was Brazil. And then one of them was like transgender forestry stuff.
Forestry for the employees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then like one thing we saw was senior. It was through the EPA, and it was to employ senior citizens or something. Just crazy stuff. Just constant. It's just never ending. And then World Wildlife Fund, which NCBA was a part of, and they were partnered with the Beef Checkoff a few years ago before people like Andrea Hutchinson and Shad started pointing this kind of stuff out. But they got $116,238,601.09. Wow. So $100 million. Meat Institute, which is the North American Meat Institute, they gave, they're the main lobbyists for the beef, for the big four, Tyson Foods, JBS, National, Cargill. They came up with $31 million, I believe. Cargill came up with $25 million. It just you could go on forever.
Well, I think
type in one that was weird. I typed in Tyson Foods. I know they got over $150 million on that Climate Smart deal because I read there's a news article about it, and there's a picture of the Tyson guy who got drunk and fell asleep at the neighbor's house.
There's a CFO. Yeah.
Well, I think
Chief Financial Officer.
But anyway, there's an article about them getting all that money, and that Tyson kid is shaking Vilsack's hand. I can remember the picture. But then if you search Tyson Foods, nothing comes up. So I don't know. Maybe it's listed under some Tyson environmental fund or who knows.
I don't know. What makes it also maddening is that we have, this exorbitant spending, and it's beyond exorbitant. It's corrupt. I've said for a long time we've lived under the most corrupt government on earth. And then you have all of these victims of like Hurricane Helene.
Yeah.
Who are still sleeping in tents.
Yeah.
And then we have a guy by the name of Daniel Goldman, who's a Democrat representative for the 10th Congressional District out of New York. DOGE found that he put $30 million into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. $30 million.
But from where though?
It was from nonprofits.
Yeah, so that's a big thing of it too. Like,
So is this just a big, huge money laundering scheme?
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's a huge money. It's massive in nature.
right, because and here's the thing that people will say anytime you bring up agriculture or anything about agriculture. Like I remember when I first started doing this and looking into different things, you'd read an article on Fox News and then you could click on comments. And if it was about agriculture, you sure would always find a comment. That we give them we just pay them farmers to, through subsidies. They get all this subsidy money. So I'm sure what you're going to hear now when we're talking about these big corporations is, well, farmers take money, which is true. Like farmers do get subsidy money. The difference I would say here, farmers don't have individual lobbyists in D.C. making sure they get that check sent directly to them. Then you'll say, well, Farm Bureau's lobbyists and they're working for you, which I get also. But like this climate smart commodity deal, none of that, they said that money was supposed to go through these companies. Like ADM got $90 million. And they were supposed to pay farmers. But, well, why not just deal directly with, there's an FSA office in every county, right? I know there is in Iowa.
Yep.
And so why not just deal directly with the farmers instead of handing a check for $40 million to Farm Journal or $90 million to Iowa Soybean Association? Well, the difference is because they have a lobbyist in D.C. with close ties to USDA. Same with NCBA. Why do they get $445,000 or $445,000, and they don't just operate directly with farmers and ranchers? Well, it's because they got an office in D.C. and they're pals with somebody at USDA,
and they're going to get they're going to get a cut of it, right. And plus, we have to prove that they are letting that go downhill to the farmers and ranchers.
Well, that doesn't. That 445 is supposed to go into some account that is it's SBS, I think. What is that? I can't remember what the account was, but it's all good luck. Good luck figuring out where that money goes. Which we get into the end, last week. Was it last week, the Cattlemen's Convention?
Sure was.
And so
San Antonio,
it just goes
Texas.
through every year, and I need to repost that. Because you get on social media and you see there are good people who know the NCBA is a corrupt. I mean, I know they know that NCBA is a corrupt, scummy corporation, but they want to go to that convention because it's a hell of a party. That's what, I was told by someone on the beef board, and I could tell they love going there, and it's fun. I get it, but it's also funded partially by beef checkoff dollars. So it's a scam, really. And I get it, but if you want to have a hell of a party, you go to your hell of a party, I guess.
I guess I'll just feed calves. That's what we're going to do. We're going to stay home and work.
Yeah. And I'm driving all around the country delivering a gigantic frame. I'm down here because I had a big piece of artwork and I was delivering it to someplace down. It's going to be in the Gaylord Texan at some point. I'll put up pictures of it.
Amazing.
What's amazing?
You are.
Oh.
You are amazing.
So I thought I'd come and visit the headwaters of Bitter
I'm glad
Creek.
you did. I wish it was springtime and not so dreary.
It is a crappy. I make fun of you for talking about how cold it is, but it is cold.
It's pretty cold, isn't it?
40 degrees, but that blowing water makes it colder.
So speaking of wasteful spending, did you hear about DHS filed a complaint, $59 million from FEMA to New York immigrants for the complaint was that these employees that are overseeing these hotels with immigrants in them were bypassing their authority figures to the tune of $59 million. FEMA sent.
So where'd the $59 million? They were just taking it?
Mm-hmm. It came from FEMA through what we're talking about.
Okay.
$59 million.
That's just
to house
missing.
Immigrants.
Well, yeah, I figured it'd be way more.
Well, that sounds like a lot to me.
In
New York City, that's just New York City.
You get, it's like somebody said, only when you're talking about the government can you say, well, $40 million ain't that much.
Yeah. Unreal.
But even like the 40,000 that NCBA got, like people will say, well, that's a drop in the bucket. Well, it's 40,000 that would do a lot. Like if, would do a lot for a lot of different people. 40,000 is not. If you've never been broke, that's when this gets really. Because I can remember being broke, and then you'd hear these kind of numbers, and you're like, dang, if I could just get next month's rent paid.
I've been there, buddy.
Yeah, and so that's what's frustrating. But yeah, well, have you seen the undercover videos at those hotels where they're like, you don't.
I've seen a couple of them.
You don't need to give me an ID or any of that stuff. Just come on in. Do you need a plane ticket for somewhere? That's the other thing they always ask them. Do you need to go anywhere?
Living under the law versus not living under the law.
It's just amazing that right now it's February 11th today. So he's been in there 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, almost a month. 3 weeks. And we've already got all this stuff going. And the other thing is,
can't believe it.
If you are mad about all this stuff, if you're mad that there's 19-year-olds working there or finding all this stuff, your brain's broken. Sorry, but like we're finding all this government corruption, and you're mad because it's Elon Musk, or you're mad because it's somebody who's not as old as you want him to be.
Listen, there's nobody in the world that has a properly working thinking mechanism up in their head that would not think this is right.
But we do see it. And it's like, what's the point? Like you're mad because, like that kid from Lincoln, did you see that video? That kid from Lincoln who figured out what was on those scrolls? He built I
didn't see that.
Artificial intelligence program on his own. These people just couldn't figure out what was written on these scrolls that were thousands of years old that they found, and he built this program that like decoded it and said what it said. And he's 19, and he's one of the guys who's in there finding all this stuff because Musk heard about it and found him and brought him in. And so you're mad about that kid being in there? I'm sorry we got geniuses and not Nancy Pelosi. If you want to get mad about ages of people working in the government, how about Mitch McConnell? Who can't walk up the steps, or Nancy Pelosi, or any of these people who can't function. Was that picture of Mitch McConnell with them bandage on his head, was that real? Or was that like...
I didn't ever see that, but I do know yesterday they pulled him out and put him in his Suburban driven by taxpayer-funded people in a wheelchair.
He's in a wheelchair now?
Yeah, he couldn't even walk to his Suburban yesterday. That's unreal.
He's in rough shape.
He's in bad shape.
But if you want to be mad about somebody's age, how about that guy? Don't worry about the 19-year-olds who are geniuses, who are finding
Nancy
where
Pelosi?
They're wasting all your money. Yeah. And
Joe Biden.
Yeah. That's the thing. Those people have been in there years and years and years, get reelected over and over.
There are people in there that have never had a job.
They're worth hundreds of millions of dollars now from who knows what.
Yeah.
And you're not mad about that, but a 19-year-old kid who's a genius who can figure out stuff that nobody else can figure out, you're mad that he's in there. That just shows that, I mean, I get it. You hate Trump. Okay. I mean, that's all you need to say. I'm mad. I hate Trump. And you don't need to say, Elon Musk is running the government.
I think it's a very, very... It's not good when you're that loyal on the line, Sorry.
Yeah, I know. But also, it's not like they were hiding anything. Like I said last time, Biden was in there 4 years. Who was running the government then? But, Musk campaigned with Trump. It's not like we didn't know he wasn't going to be involved when
it's not like we didn't know this was coming. Yeah. We knew this was coming. They told us it was coming.
And that's who won.
You got to bring it back.
Elections have consequences.
Bring it back to our old buddy, Eric Groper. Man, he said it ain't about right and left. It's about right and wrong. And he's right.
Right on.
Good job, Eric.
And so bring it back to our other old buddy, Brett Kinsey, who found the Sustains Act, which there is a podcast. About a year ago, I sat down with him, and me and him said, why are we the only ones talking about this Sustains Act? If you don't know, that's how that's the other thing about, you want to blame farmers or whatever. Sustained Act allows public-private partnerships. So
prioritizes public-private partnerships.
So we talk about the Tyson Foods grant money that for some reason didn't come up on that website, but was in that news article that Tyson Foods donated, I think, $50 million or something to this program, and they got a grant for $160 million. So it's like, and so that's not something that farmers and ranchers are doing who are getting subsidy money, and we can have the subsidy argument some other time. But I just know that that's going to come up. Well, you take government money. or all these farmers and ranchers.
The
they
Sustains
take
Act,
money.
though, was passed through an omnibus bill.
Yeah.
Introduced by G.T. Thompson, a Republican.
Co-sponsored by Randy Feenstra, my house.
That's right. And it was
Dusty Johnson
really geared to USDA. It was really geared to implement these public-private partnerships in agriculture.
Yeah. And so that's all the other thing about all these politicians acting all mad.
Well, we've got Kristi Noem even promoting them now as in her new position.
Right.
It's a problem.
They are pretending like this DOGE thing is great and they all are on board, but what happened when you passed the law that created all this mess?
That's right. And you can go to the same way with subsidies. A gentleman asked me this week about what my thoughts on subsidies were. And I said, well, we got to bypass the subsidy issue because we're living in the fruit of a broken policy system created. So we have to have some of these subsidies to uplift the farmer. But if we're going to get out of this mess, we're going to have to wean everybody off of these subsidies and do what Congress was created to do, and break up these people who are most powerful through monopolies and oligarchs, and that Congress has actually allowed the acquisitions and mergers of these mega companies, which has centralized this and caused this broken policy system in the United States. And so we can't just shut off the subsidies now, because the federal government created that system.
Yeah.
They created it. So we now, to keep the people on the land, they've got all these subsidies. I'm not against helping people. I'm for helping people, and I'm for getting the younger people back on the land. But I'm also for prioritizing fixing the broken system. Break them up, as Mike Calicrate would say. Break them up.
Yeah, and when you get in, because people who take subsidies, all of them would say, well, somebody's going to take it. This program is out there and somebody's going to use it. And if it ain't me, it's my neighbor. And then I got to, go to the local farm auction and bid against somebody, But the thing is, when you come to these corporations and all this money that goes to these corporations and organizations, they came up with the Sustains Act. G.T. Thompson didn't come up with this idea on his own where
it's not new.
Private corporations can funnel money into the USDA and then get money funneled right back to them. He didn't come up with that. It was the lobbyists that wrote that bill. And so, they're lobbying for it and creating all this money. And then they're saying, well, we'll take it. It's not like we have these farm programs, and if you don't take it, somebody else will. But,
well, the problem is with the Sustains Act is it bypasses congressional rulemaking and gives that authority to the agency head. That's unconstitutional. Public-private partnerships, is prioritized through the Sustains Act. They are not new. A multitude of governments have used them, including Joseph Stalin used them. Hitler used them. I mean, they're not, and they didn't invent them, but they were, they used them all the time.
Part of fascism was like
and
that. So
it's something that I think that bears a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah. It's insane that it went through and nobody really...
nobody knew about it, Jim.
Yeah.
How
Except
would
for
it
Brett
not?
Kinsey. I'll never forget when I saw him.
And that was thanks to Karina Jones, too.
Okay.
Yeah, she sent Brett an email and said, look at this. And then Brett got all over it. And
I remember the night I was driving to South Dakota when he called me and he goes, I didn't even sleep last night. I can't believe what is going on.
That was the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I know.
That was nothing.
I was like, Brett, I'm about to give a speech. I'm trying to learn it on my way driving up there. And I'm like, don't give me anything new. And so I got home and I looked at it, and then I had him on the podcast. So go back and listen to Brett Kinsey podcast.
Yeah,
and then
it's a great podcast.
I talk all about the Sustains Act.
But seriously, Jim, I mean, what we've been fighting for and against in our industry is just a minute tip of the iceberg of what's being exposed right now in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, we're just a little,
It's just a tiny little snippet, man.
Dumb hicks talking about... Yeah.
I can't believe
Think
it.
about the corporations. And that's one, I was looking into this. I haven't had a ton of time, so I was looking at this morning, and there was other ones like Pepsi I wanted to type in because I know they got a pile of money. And, all these corporations they've got their lobbyists in D.C., and they made sure they got paid.
Yeah. It's a crazy deal. What about all the airplane wrecks?
Uh-oh. We're going to go down the theory.
Oh, I have no
What's your theory?
I have no theories on it. I'm just like, the first airplane crash was in Washington, D.C., and then we've had like 10 since all over the nation, I think. And, of course, we go a long time with no airplane crash.
That one where they run into each other, that's what's weird. So I have a drone that I use sometime doing different video stuff, and I kind of live by an airport. It's out in the country kind of, but
yeah,
there's an airport. And there's little planes that start dropping around my house. And before I can even see or hear an airplane, I'll get a message on my screen on the drone that says aircraft in the area.
Really?
Land now. Or,
you must have a nice drone.
Yeah, I wrecked it and broke it. But then I had to fix it. I paid double for it so far. Anyway, but yeah, so how does one airplane hit the other? But then you think, well, that D.C. airspace, they're probably getting those alerts constantly.
All the time.
There's aircraft in the area all the time.
The one you're specifically talking about is in Arizona, right?
Yeah, Motley Crue's. Was that
right.
their jet that they flew on, or that guy just had it?
I can't answer that, but I do know that it did kill one person that crashed into an airplane on the tarmac, and it killed one person and put 3 more, critically injured and in the hospital. But I seen a video where there was a whole wheel and all of its mechanism was laying on the runway a mile back. So they think that's what caused
the wheel
that.
fell off?
The whole wheel and the landing mechanism
The wheels
fell
are literally
off.
falling off the aircraft industry.
That's a bad deal.
It is a bad deal. I shouldn't laugh. You ever listen to Motley Crue?
No.
Never? Mm-mm. Shout. That's devil music. Shout at the devil. Wasn't that Motley Crue?
I don't know. That was a little before my time.
Yeah.
And I'm older than you.
Motley Crue's not. What year did you graduate? Motley Crue's like 80s.
Yeah.
What year
that's
did
my
you graduate?
sister's time. I graduated in 1992.
Well, yeah. I listened to Motley Crue. Junior high, probably.
I didn't listen to that. My mama wouldn't let me.
Hair bands.
Now, hair bands.
Guns N' Roses.
Yep. No, I didn't listen to any of that. I listened to George Strait, Clint Black, Reba
Mark
McIntyre.
Chestnut.
I loved all that 70s.
You listen to Zach Top? Do you know who that is?
No.
He's a new kid, and he dresses and sings and everything just like
George?
Mark Chestnut.
Oh, really?
Pretty much.
There's a lot
And
of
he's like I don't know how old he is. Looks like he's 25 or something.
There's a lot of talented kids out there. Really talented. I'm not among them.
It's weird, though, of 90s. I need to get my old shirts out.
Well,
old brush poppers. You
I'll
have a
tell
brush
you.
popper shirt?
Oh yeah, they were thick, thick. Oh man, that would be funny. I guess maybe they're coming back.
I had one that was like pink and green.
Oh, I had the stripes up and down. Yeah.
I had one that was like a Navajo print.
You can thank Garth Brooks for that stuff.
Yeah.
That was a Garth Brooks look, if there ever was any.
Do you have some green Wranglers?
I never wore green, but I remember wearing.
I had gray ones.
I had tan ones and black ones.
Yeah, I had black and
they didn't
gray
starch up the same as blue jeans.
So see, I never starched.
Oh, my mama made us starch our clothes.
Oh,
we did it ourselves.
I come from farm country. They don't even know what starching your jeans is.
She made us.
I remember my brother he went to Colorado and worked on a ranch, and he'd come back with starch jeans, I think. And we're like, what the heck?
We didn't
What's
leave
that line down the middle of your pants?
We didn't leave the house unless our clothes were ironed and our boots were polished.
How did you start? So she would starch them at home?
No, she made us do it at home.
Oh, you did it?
Yeah, we ironed our own. All of us kids ironed our
How
own
often?
clothes.
So they say it lasts. Like, how long would you?
So,
wear
like,
them?
I have these pants done at the.
You
clean.
get your pants starched?
Every single one of my pants are starched, and I can wear the same pair. Unless it's really muddy, I wear the same pair of work pants starched a week straight.
So for a full week, you'll wear the same pair of pants?
At least 5 days. Yeah.
Hope it don't get hot.
What if it gets hot?
It might get stinky.
Only if they get wet.
Oh, I meant you might get stinky.
I'll tell you
might
this.
get into your pants.
I'll tell you this.
I don't want to
much.
get into too many details.
Let me just tell you, if you're loping across the prairie on a cold day and you have a starch shirt with no T-shirt under there and starch pants, you will rub your skin raw. Oh. It will be bleeding. Yeah, I learned that a long time ago. We had to have a T-shirt and we put leggings on.
So I raced motorcycle for a while, and there's guys that would put tape
on their nipples.
Yep.
Yeah, I've done that too. In the middle of the winter, and it's cold, and I'm just telling you right now, North Texas, if it gets cold here, is the coldest place on earth. And I was raised in Colorado. I'm telling you, that north wind, it can be 30 degrees out here, and it feels like it's 500 below, and your little old skin gets bumps on it, and your nipples,
goosebumps.
Your nipples get chapped, and then they start bleeding. Been through it.
It ain't colder than 20 below. 40 below in North Dakota.
No, I don't.
You said it's the coldest place on earth. There ain't no way.
If you're on a horse,
it feels cold.
Going across the prairie with 40-mile-an-hour wind and it's 30 degrees here, I promise you'll never have been colder in your life. And on the opposite end of that, you'll never have been hotter than anywhere else right here.
I believe that. But
I can remember when we were growing up, we'd be working out in a foot of snow all day with no coat on because it's a different cold.
Oh, yeah.
It's so different,
That's what everybody thinks, like Denver's cold. You got to get bundled up, but it's like warm there.
Yeah.
In the wintertime.
Yeah.
Mostly.
It's a dry climate. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
What else you got?
It's beauty. I don't have much else. I've been driving across the country with no lights on my trailer, scared to death somebody's going to run into me. Shouldn't say that. That's just illegal. But what do you do?
You ain't a real cowboy unless you don't. If you have lights on your trailer, you ain't a real cowboy.
Well, when you're 500 miles from home, it gets a little nerve-wracking driving around in the dark.
I've done it before.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. I'm paranoid, too. I think everybody's going to run into
I've pulled so many plugs out of trailers, unhooking them, that green is right turn, yellow is left turn, red is stop, brown is running lights, and black is your ground. I could do it in my sleep.
Well, you'd think you'd remember. You can remember all that, but you can't remember to pull the plug out.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're in a hurry.
Tell us.
You want to talk about wild horses?
Yeah, let's talk about
horses.
Feral horses. We can. I don't have great, vast amounts of knowledge of it.
But here we are. Like, I feel like some people think that this is the chance. We have all these problems in agriculture. If you're talking about ranching, one of the major problems, feral horses. They don't have a predator animal. They have a foal every year. They're doubling in size every year or 2 or 3. I don't know all the percentages, but I listened to a podcast on the way down here, the Meat Eater podcast. I shouldn't promote other people's stuff, but if you've listened to all
it's
mine,
second in line.
It's pretty good.
Lonesome Lands.
Yeah, there you go. But he had a guy on from Wind River Indian Reservation. And they were talking about feral horses and how big a problem it is. But, I mean, you talk about all this federal spending. A ton of money goes to these outfits that just take their ranches. They just take feral horses because that's what they are. They're not wild horses because they're not. It's like a dog. If you turn it out, it's not a wild dog. It's a feral dog.
That's right.
And so that's what we have. And people are dumping their horses now because there isn't, they've changed all the slaughter rules and they don't have horse slaughter plants because all these activists push back against them. But what you've ended up doing is created this massive problem. And so what the federal government is doing is now they're just paying people to run wild horses on their ranch.
And in feedlots.
Yeah, they're just putting them in feedlots and feeding them every day in a feed bunk and waiting for them to die.
That's the federal government.
And that's just no way for a horse to live or any, especially all these French people love eating horses. I'm not against it. I don't think you ever try horse?
No, but I got a friend whose name is Mitzi Goodman. She is a good cowboy up in Nebraska, and she day worked for us a lot. Spent a lot of time together, and she went out and day worked on a ranch near Riverton, Wyoming. Oh, that's big country, right?
That's Wind River.
Yeah, and she was day working out there and just kind of getting acclimated to the ranch. And there was a couple guys that were managing it, and they had her over for supper one night, and they had spaghetti, and they're like, "How do you like the spaghetti?" And she's like, "It tastes pretty good." She says, "What am I eating?" And she said something like elk or something, and they laughed, and they said, "No, we had a colt break his leg the other day, and that's what it is." And she said it was fine. She said they had to put a lot of beef tallow in it to.
Was it like ground?
Yeah, it was ground meat, and she said you couldn't tell. She said she enjoyed it, and I was like,
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, I think the people on that podcast.
Listen,
one of them I think was a Navajo, but she'd married this guy up here, who was Shoshone or something like that.
Yeah, that's Wyoming.
But yeah, I think she said she'd had it, and it was good.
Listen, I think none of us have been hungry if we haven't had it. You know?
Well, that's the other thing on that podcast. He talked about mountain men, and he was talking about them eating buffalo intestine, all the crazy things they would
didn't
eat,
waste.
and how they would starve, and they'd eat their mules and, well, eat each other in the old Donner.
The Donner Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
there's
and they
no doubt
also
about
talked
it.
about there's probably a lot more cannibalism in the like mountain man community than you would ever know about, because those guys starved a lot. And if
Did you ever watch the movie Alive?
No,
where the soccer
I never did.
team's plane crashed up in the Alps,
I
and they
know
had to
what you're
eat each
talking
other.
about. Yeah.
I don't know
that's right.
about cannibalism in maybe, I don't know. Back in the day, I suppose.
Well, they were talking about how those mountain men would starve.
Yeah, they'd
and
be
they
hungry.
said 1 out of 10 mountain men would die like a violent death. Or probably, and then who knows how many would freeze or starve. Like Jeremiah Johnson, that guy frozen with his gun.
Sure did.
Got him a Hawken rifle.
Wow. I don't know.
I feel like
I guess that's why we had to be prepared for winter. I mean, we
Oh,
all
yeah.
spent all fall. My dad used to say we spent all summer picking up cow chips to burn all winter. That's
Yeah.
what my dad would say. So
And if you
they
didn't-
got prepared. If they didn't have anything in the winter.
right. Yeah. Where was that?
On the plains of southeast Colorado, wasn't no wood out there. They burned cow chips.
All right.
But I'll tell you this, even to this day, I go up there, spend a week helping my mom and my sisters cut wood for my mom all day long for a couple days, and then she burns it all winter long. That's how she heats her house.
Who cuts the wood?
I
Who
do.
cuts the logs, though?
Well, all of our fences are being transitioned into steel posts. So those old posts coming out of the ground, we have hundreds of thousands of them.
Cedar?
Yeah, old cedar. And that's so we don't let any of that go to waste. We use it.
Burns hot.
We burn it.
That old stuff.
You cannot get a better heat in your house.
Somebody gave me some old firewood one time. I used to heat my shop with wood. I about burned the place down.
Yeah.
So I stuck it in there, and I come back. I'd fill it at night so it wouldn't get too
You
cold.
banked it.
Yeah, and then I put it in. I'm constantly worried about the place burning down because it's a tinderbox full of wood chips and sawdust and every other thing. So I go out there before I go to bed and look at it. It was like 100 degrees in there, and that thing was glowing.
Glowing?
I was like, holy jeez! I had to open everything up.
Yeah.
Yeah. The good old days.
The good old days.
Burn
Those are the
wood.
good days, Jim, though. I like talking about history.
Yeah, I want to have. We do. I want to get into history every time. We're gonna have like a segment. You got anything good to talk about? I should have had something.
History-wise,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good stuff to talk about.
What about here?
Well, right here, this was an area where the Caddo, Wichita, a little bit of the Kiowa, Comanche, the Tonkawa tribe lived, and of course the mass exodus you read about the mass exodus in the history book, took place 5 miles west of here. That was the beginning of the mass exodus to the reservations in Oklahoma. There's a lot of history here. Right here we have Fort Belknap within 20 miles, and it was in the line of the frontier forts. Really cool place. You need to go
So
to
there's
that.
a fort. You drove me by.
Yeah, we drove by it.
Last time I was here. So line of forts goes from Fort Worth. Is that the start of them?
We'll just say in Texas it is.
Okay.
It is.
And then there's Belknap, and then it
Well,
just keeps kind
there's
of
Fort Richardson
and
at
it's all along the line.
Jacksboro. There's Fort Richardson at Jacksboro, Fort Belknap, Fort Phantom Hill. There's all these forts.
Oh, so they're not
Fort
that
Griffin.
far apart.
No, like
Fort Griffin.
Yeah, Fort
There's all
Griffin's
kinds
less than 30 miles, I would say, from Fort Belknap. It was truly a line of forts clear out to the southwest. It's really good. The history here is rich, man. It's just incredible. And I mean, you've seen all them arrowheads and stuff I found, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was Wild West. That's why my great-great-grandmother took her children. They were over here at Throckmorton, Texas, and her husband died, and he said, go to Colorado. Texas is too wild for these boys. She had 5 boys and a girl left. She had lost her husband and another daughter.
Your great-grandma lived down here?
Yeah, Throckmorton. And she says he was dying of stomach cancer, they think. And he said, take those boys north. It's too wild here. Because it was post-Civil War,
Do you know what year?
Yeah, about 1898, 1899.
It was still too wild.
It was wild, open country.
Because were the Comanches still around?
No. That was all gone. But
like rustlers.
People were coming west, right? And she did. She took those boys out of wild Texas and got them to Colorado, and it was a little less settled. So it was a little calmer,
more open.
But that's, the history, the rich history.
Yeah.
Of course, you have the Wagner Ranch right over here, less than 30 miles as the crow flies. You have the 4-6s Ranch, 70 miles west of us. A lot of history there. The Pitchfork beyond there. Abilene, Texas, 80 miles down the road. Really cool frontier city museum down there. Right out here at Lubbock, right west of us, the Ranching Heritage Center.
I've never been there.
You have to go.
Yeah, not this time.
Yep.
Drove through Oklahoma, and that's always interesting.
I love
to
Oklahoma.
me because I don't think people realize. I drove through eastern Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Which I drove through McAllister, which I never even knew that there was a real. Like I grew up watching True Grit, and True Grit they stop at McAllister's because it's a trading post, and if you take True Grit happens, they leave. What is it in Arkansas? The town. Fort.
I don't know.
I can't remember. She's Maddie Ross from Yale County. But the edge of Arkansas into Oklahoma. And then, so they go into the territory, which is Indian territory, which is what Oklahoma was. Boy, you drive through there, you think if you're a if you're a bandit, that would have been the place to hide.
Well, that's why they call...
You can't see 10 foot into them woods driving down the road.
Well, and they came further west, too. And that's what the Panhandle, which is known as the Panhandle of Oklahoma now, is known as no man's land. And, there's a lot of breaky country up there, but there's a lot of wide open country. But that's where all of these people from the east, from the north, and from the south came to hide. All these outlaws came to hide because it was no man's land. There was no law there. That was the last place to get law, and it's still a little bit lawless, But that's why they call it no man's land. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there ain't hardly anything from like McAllister to Paris, Texas. It's pretty much. I mean, there's a few little spots on the map, but not much. It's just trees. Thick trees.
Well, I still like the West. You can go from Rocky Ford, Colorado, on Highway 71 from Rocky Ford, Colorado, clear to Deadwood, South Dakota, on Highway 71, and you go through about 6 towns the whole drive.
You better get gas when you can.
You better get gas.
All right, man.
All right. Yeah.
Stay tuned. I'm going to do a podcast with Shad where he's going to talk about his growing up, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about whatever
the Shad Sullivan story.
Oh,
coming
my gosh.
Soon, and I'm going to start doing way more podcasts. The thing with this mirror that I just delivered is I've been focused on it pretty much 24/7 for the past 2 to 3 weeks, which is why you haven't seen any other podcasts, and then Shad's got me committed to this once a week, so I had to do that. I got rid of that mirror. And I'm just going to really focus on Lonesome Lands, at least for a few weeks.
Yeah, you got to subscribe and go
Yep.
like and share this up. Share the Lonesome
You
Report
support it.
up.
You like what we're
Getting a
doing.
lot of positive feedback, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And if you've
Appreciative.
emailed me or texted me or messaged me in the past couple weeks and I didn't get back to you, I'm sorry.
Except the one guy that called me an ideologue.
An ideologue?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a comment, right?
That was a comment, yeah.
What was that about? TikTok?
I was talking about the ideologues incrementally infiltrating
You
into
guys
our
are a
society.
couple ideologues. I guarantee you he's an NCBA member. Because
I
we were
bet he's
talking
nothing.
Well, he was mad at us for something we said. Well,
Was
maybe,
he?
There's people that hate Trump's gut. So if you talk about corruption in the government, well, that means you're a horrible person because you're in love with Trump. Well, maybe it ain't. Maybe it's because we don't like watching money get pissed away.
Like I say, we're living in the fruit of a broken system, and we have to fix the systems. Somebody's got to do it, so hate Trump and let him do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
If Biden would have fixed it, I'd been all for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You know?
I would. I mean, how do you argue with finding corruption in the government?
Exactly.
Because everybody's complained about it, no matter who's been president all along.
Exactly.
Let's fix it. Let's fix it. Let's fix it. Now they're fixing it.
And
Few
everybody's
people are
complaining about it.
Not everybody. I think most people like it.
I'm actually excited about this administration, man. I really am.
Right, like that's what I was talking about, the wild horse thing. I guess we didn't get too into that, but all of these problems we've had for years and years. Now we got 4 years. We're like 3 weeks in, and we're fixing problems. So it's kind of
Fast.
like, these issues, let's get them fixed. I don't know, what is the fix for wild horse?
Slaughter.
Bring back horse
We have to
slaughter.
bring it back, or we're going to be inundated.
But I mean, what are the odds of that happening in the animal rights crazy world?
I'll quote my good friend Mindy Patterson. She says, "You know what? In order for us to eat, something has to die, and that's never pretty, right?
Yeah.
And we can't just keep. I mean, what is more abusive than watching an animal out there suffer, die,
Right.
run
Lose
into
all its teeth, can't eat.
run into a tree with? I've seen those feral horses with trees sticking through their skulls where they've been fighting. They're standing out there with broken legs. It's an awful thing
Yeah.
to see. And we can talk about like abortion rights and all this stuff. And one gal asked me about abortion rights, and I said, I'm the wrong guy to ask because I've spent my life trying to save lives
Yeah.
in
I've
the
thought
animal
about that.
in animals. We want them all
If
to
you
live.
look at the ranching community, it's overwhelmingly probably anti-abortion because when a cow aborts a calf, it's a horrible thing.
It's awful. It's the word,
And it's not just horrible because you're losing money. It's
No,
horrible.
it's
You're
horrible
standing
because-
there above a dead fetus
Yes.
out in the middle, and here's the mother that doesn't want to leave
Yes.
that dead fetus for days.
Yes.
And you pick it up, and she tries to attack you. I mean, you're just dealing with this life and death type of stuff, and this mother who she knows it's her job to take care of that baby.
That's right. It's
So
natural.
it makes it hard for
Nobody wants to see a little baby. That's why I can remember. I was telling you last night about the blizzard in 1988, and my dad was calving a bunch of heifers out, and those calves was dying in that blizzard. We were out there. I wasn't. I was too young. But the girls, my sisters, were all out there with Dad. They were picking these calves up, bringing them to the house, warming them up, getting them started, with colostrum and stuff. And I wrote that article. I'll think a farmer or think a rancher a while back, and it was when the temperature up there in Nebraska, South Dakota was -40, and these people were calving cows, and they were trying to pulling calves in that, and they'll do anything to keep an animal alive because life is precious, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Great way to end it.
All right.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.